Right, learn what are good leadership qualities, what are not as part of the potential show. Any other reasons why you're here? Okay, all right.
She actually was
I mean, I did pay some people to come here, so that's how it works out. So, all right, so then the first thing I have to ask you is, let's take a moment. Let's take a moment, everybody. I want you to do a visualization exercise with me. So I want you to visualize a toxic leader at work. Visualize, excuse my French, the a-hole in the office. We all know who they are. Anyone knows, but I want you to visualize that toxic person in the workplace and then just throw out what words come to mind when you think of this person. Bully. What else?
Ego.
What? Ego. Huge ego. What else? Weak. So insecure. Masking in dominance, but so insecure. What else? What else? Wait, say it again. Negativity. Yes. One other one. What else? Oh, let's talk about manipulation. The level of gaslighting. Oh my gosh. Oh, and when you actually challenge that dominance and you see how fragile they are, their ego's so fragile. Oh, it's the best. I don't know if it's the best when they're screaming at you, but once you challenge them, then they're so fragile. Okay, what else? Any other that you think of? How do you feel when you see this person? Right, right. Which actually directly affects your productivity. We can even talk about that later. What else? You feel frustrated. You're like, oh, they're going to be at the meeting? Oh, gosh, I don't want to go to that meeting anymore. Right? What else? Any other ones? What? Unsafe. And then once you feel unsafe, like, why are you even going to work anymore? Like, psychologically, there's so many studies, look them up for yourself, that toxicity directly affects your physical as well as your mental health state as you're going to work. And we don't talk about that enough, and that's part of the reason why I'm here. All right, now let's visualize that worker you admire, that coworker, that leader that gives off that vibe where you're like, this is why I'm here. What are the feelings you get when you think of that person? Safe. What? Empathetic, compassionate, understanding. What are the other? You can be genuine. You don't have to fake it. How many of you feel sometimes you've been at work where you feel like you had to pretend? Like, I wear this bow tie to remind myself how stupid costume. We're always wearing costumes. So I'm like, oh yeah, this is just a costume like anything else, right? What? Any others? Any others that when you think of like someone that you love working with? Energy. Yeah, what else? Knowledgeable. You want to go. This is the whole reason why people do not, you've heard it so many times. I'm going to try to avoid saying cliches, but people don't leave jobs, right? They leave people. So what are you going to do? So this is part of what we're exploring today. We're doing it through a Ted Lasso lens, right? But we're talking a lot about why healthy feminine leadership matters, why healthy masculine leadership matters, and why we need both. And right now we're so skewed to one side, this is the problem. Right? And this is what we're trying to explore. So I used to run a Ted Lasso podcast called What Would Ted Lasso Do? And we would talk about it from the state of positive psychology and leadership development. And it was all about breaking down every episode and being like, what are the lessons that we can actually learn? How many of you remember, for people that because I'm going to be making sure to address both. But for people that saw Ted Lasso, do any of you remember the anxiety scene? Raise your hand if you remember the anxiety scene. It's actually considered one of the most authentic versions of having an anxiety attack on TV. And it was a comedy show, right? So how do we actually make sure that we allow people to be somewhat themselves? That's what we're actually trying to explore. And then if at any point you want the slides, that's my LinkedIn there. Just go ahead and follow me there, and I'll get them to you. So what we're covering today is we're going to reflect on how we got here. Then we're going to be talking about how much toxic leadership is costing you. So this is key for you making arguments as to why we should do this. Because a lot of times people are going to be like, well, why do we need balanced leadership? Who cares? Well, if it's costing you a lot of money, maybe you should care, right? Then we're going to explore leadership archetypes. I am a positive psychology play person, so we will be playing a little bit today. So just letting you know that the more we interact and be authentic with each other and not BS each other, the more we can actually teach one another. Because I'm just facilitating, but we're all going to be here teaching one another. And then I'm going to identify the values of healthy feminine and masculine leadership, and then finally determine actions to cultivate balanced leadership. Like, what are you doing? What can you do tomorrow when you go back to work? Okay? So right now, I've traveled to so many SHRM conferences, SHRM National, going to Arizona next, and the vibe I'm getting from so many employees is just work sucks. Just work is the worst. And how many people have heard someone say, I just don't want to work anymore? Like, I just have no desire, like no work, like none at all, like not just a little less work, just no work, right? So work sucks for a lot of people, and especially if you're talking to Gen Z, they are done. They are done. They're like, this is what I'm doing for the next 40 years? Like, I don't know. This doesn't seem like a fun job, right? But it doesn't have to. Like, it never had to. So what are we doing to actually make a more playful place? What are we doing to actually bring more positivity, not just for the corny sake, but so that you actually want to come to work? You actually feel some joy. You know, let's not lie and be like, I'm my authentic self at work. No, you're not. You know, and you don't want the whole self, right? Like, just like some of it. Other parts for therapy. But like, what are we doing to provide a space where people feel they can actually be real, right? How much code switching are we currently doing right now that is preventing us from actually being able to connect one another on a human level, right? We're at work 2,500 hours a year, 2,500 hours. We should not be struggling through all 2,500 hours. That sounds horrible. So how do we get there? So when I've talked to so many staff, what they really want is they want to feel seen, they want to feel appreciated, and they want to feel heard, right? And that is corny and it's a cliche, but what does that actually mean? So feeling seen is, do you see me like a human being? Like outside of the fact of what you can get from me. Like, do you see me as a human being, right? Then appreciated, are you paying me? Right? Like, are you compensating me for my work? Not my worth, because my value and money should not be connected. That's a whole other conversation. But and then lastly, do you hear me? Or do I just say stuff and it falls into a black hole, never to be seen again, right? How many times have we actually done that? And then been like, why am I still here? Like, do they even understand me? So you should be constantly asking your staff, as well as your leader staff, what are you doing to make sure your staff feels seen, heard, and appreciated? I don't know. What do you want to do? How do they even appreciate? Do you even know their languages of appreciation? Like, do you know these certain things? So you should be constantly asking them this question. How do you make sure they feel seen, heard, and appreciated, and valued, frankly? So if we're going to talk about feminine and masculine leadership, we need to talk about what the issue has been so far. So right now, I like this definition out of all of them. So toxic masculinity is the narrow and repressive description of manhood, designating being a man as defined by dominance, aggression, individualism, and lack of emotion. And I usually don't read the slides, but this one I need to read because we need to emphasize the idea of dominance, aggression, and individualism. These are the ones that are actually poisoning workplaces right now, in my opinion. My argument is that we're poisoning workplaces doing this. But the reality is that toxic masculinity is not anti-men. See, so a lot of people think when I'm talking about toxic masculinity, I'm talking about dudes. No, I'm talking about a style of leadership. It's a style of leadership that sometimes is embraced a lot by dudes, but women embrace it. Trans people embrace it. You know, however you identify, you may embrace these traits because you're like, well, this is how you get things done, right? Like, you gotta bully someone. You gotta do it this way because they see the Elon Musks of the world and they're like, oh, is that how you do it? Oh, okay, then I guess I'm gonna do it that way, right? So we have to understand that we're not talking about toxic masculinity as anti-men. We're talking about a style of leadership that can be embraced by anyone, right? Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes, totally embraced everything that Steve Jobs, she even started dressing like Steve Jobs at one point, right? Because she thought that was the way to do it. This dude used to not be a prick. He used, like back in like 1998, cool guy. All the tech heads wanted to work with him. Amazon was the coolest place to work. And I'll say this later on, like you'll find the future where people are having the most fun. Amazon in 1999, 98, great place to work because they were solving the most interesting questions, right? Now, if you watch many Amazon documentaries, all of his friends that liked him in 99 are like, he's a prick. I don't like him anymore, right? Because something happened. Something happened. What happened, right? They believed their own BS. They believed that they should go to space. You know, maybe they should. You know, so like we have to understand that when the ego takes over certain people, that's what it might happen, right? So what toxic masculine traits have you seen? So what are some of the ones that you've seen in the workplace? Oh, yelling, yeah. What else? Cursing, what else? Oh, belittling, right? What else? Oh, narcissism, let's go. How many people know someone narcissistic in the office? Look at the hands, dude, that's a lot of people. Goodness, are we building more narcissists? What is happening? Okay, what else? My way or the highway. Talk about black and white thinking, right? There's only one right way. There's only one wrong way. There's no gray area. HR is all gray. Like we are always dealing with BS in the middle. So we always have to be in the gray and someone's just like, well, just fire him. I just can't. Like I just can't manifest. Just turn them into a good leader. I just can't. They're horrible right now. It may take 5 years to turn them into someone that knows how to actively listen. Like I don't even know if they know what listening is, right? Like it's amazing how leaders will come to HR and be like, solve all the issues, pandemic, solve it. Okay, is it solved yet? Did you solve it yet? So so the reason why I talk about like what toxic masculine traits have you seen is because like bullying, right? Insecurity masked as dominance, gatekeeping, tons of gaslighting. This is happening to you on a regular basis all the time. And then a lot of times you're like, did that just happen? Like, I don't even know what just happened here, right? Or I was just talking to someone that was just like, I had to lay off 2,500 people. Wait, what? Like, as soon as I arrive, like that's my job? Like how, like to lack the level of compassion and empathy, that is where it's just like, okay, why are we continuing to tolerate this? So I'm gonna try to make an argument as to why and how much it's gonna cost you. But in order to do that, I must utilize an individual. So let me get to that individual. So there's so many to decide. I can't decide. There are just so many narcissists to pick from. Why don't I pick the one in the middle? Let's go with that one. So he definitely exhibits, so Elon Musk definitely exhibits a lot of the traits that, this is Rupert Murdoch, right? And for anyone that has not seen Ted Lasso, the quick version of explaining what the story is you have, here, let me go back. You have Ted. That's Ted. I love Ted. And Ted has been challenged to fly from the US to England to coach a soccer team, and he coaches football. So he has no idea what he's doing, and then for 3 seasons, he has to turn around the team. So that is the premise. Is that a good analysis of the premise? Okay, good. All right, so let's get back to Musk, right? So then there's someone that is the anti-hero, which is Rupert, I call him Murdoch, but that's not his name. It's Mannion. Well, we could say Murdoch. And in many ways, just like Elon Musk, like he's praised for his genius. Look how smart this man is. He's the brilliant jerk. Yeah, he's mean, but like he gets things done, right? Like there's this whole thing about how amazing this person is, and they just ignore all of their, all of the toxic traits, right? So let's just talk about Twitter. Let's just analyze Twitter for just a moment and just see what happens when you build a not psychologically safe space. So, remember, he arrived in October of 2022. This is him on the first day. He walks into Twitter, he brings a kitchen sink, and he's just like, I'm gonna throw out everything from the kitchen sink. That's exactly how he was as soon as he arrived. Next thing, this was posted by someone. The new guy at Twitter dissolved all the ERGs, all the employee resource groups, immediately, as soon as he arrived. No more Twitter women or Blackbirds. This is so unbelievable to watch. So he just starts dismantling all of them, right? People start quitting in droves. Then he lays off 50% of staff, just like that. Doesn't even know who he lays off. So some people were doing jobs that were necessary, and all of a sudden parts of Twitter just started getting shut down. But he didn't care. He just was like drastically letting people go. Oh, and then this was great. So then after he did this, he goes, listen, if you're going to be focused, if you're going to be at Twitter, you got to be hardcore, right? Black and white, hardcore. You got to be hardcore. In order to be hardcore, you need to fly to San Francisco and work right alongside me. And we're going to work till like midnight, numerous nights, right? So they took a photo of that night where everyone that flew in, and I want you to just notice, if you notice a difference between the pre-Elon Musk photo and the post. Do you notice just the difference? I don't know if I can pick out what exactly is missing, but it seems like there's just a lot of energy, a lot of different type of energy going on here, you know? And it's just, this was the vibe that he was giving, right? This is December of 2022. So 2 months after he arrived, 2 months. Then what started happening? Advertisers started leaving in droves. What I told you earlier about the fact that like the futures where people are having the most fun, no fun was being had there. It wasn't an innovative place anymore. Advertisers were like, I don't even want to go. How many people got rid of their Twitter accounts? Anyone that got it? Yeah, you either got rid of your Twitter account or you saw the logo. The logo even tells me not to come. I'm like, I don't feel like coming anymore, right? So he loses so many advertisers. He quits. He steps down, gives the job to a woman, right? To be like, here you go, enjoy. Like, you deal with my mess that I created. And then finally he admitted recently that like it might just fail. The whole thing may fail. This is what I talk about when I talk about toxic masculine leadership, right? Dominance, aggression, you know, all of this bravado, but then not backed up by any level of empathetic or compassionate leadership. This is the biggest problem we have, in my opinion, with the workplace right now, is that we have so many people celebrating dudes like this for no reason, because they're not even bringing in money. So what are we doing with them, right? So then my argument, how many people saw Barbie? Oh my gosh, that was so good. If you haven't, you should. It's amazing. But the thing that was great about Barbie that made this argument was that patriarchal leadership right now doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help men. A lot of people think it does. It doesn't. It helps like one dude out, but everyone else pays for it. So then if only a few people are paying, or only a few people are benefiting, why are we all agreeing to it? Because this is not fun. Like, it is not fun for, this is surprising, but it's not fun for a lot of men to be in male-dominated places where we always have to pretend that we are stronger than we are, where we cannot be vulnerable. Healthy masculinity is my ability to be able to be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Do you know what you're doing? Oh my goodness, right? Like, we can't do that supposedly based off of this. So we need to stop buying into this part. So then I always say this, I love this quote because this, if you want to address anything in your workplace, just do this. What is the worst culture? What's the worst work culture currently at your office? Why are you tolerating it? That's it, just that. If you just did that, so much would change, right? Work culture is defined by the worst behavior tolerated. Why are you tolerating that behavior? Why are we celebrating Musk? He's losing money at Tesla. He's losing money at SpaceX. He's losing money at Twitter. Why are we still celebrating? So we have to be challenging these notions of who are really great leaders. This is why I go to Ted Lasso. So I said earlier, you will find the future where people are having the most fun. Think of for yourself, What is the innovation that you are doing at your organization so people want to go there? Why do they want to go to your job and not someone else's? Especially Gen Z. Gen Z is going to be 30% of the workforce by 2030. 30%. Gen Alpha is going to be 10. I don't even know what Gen Alpha is going to do, right? So like, what are you doing to actually create joy in the workplace? People will stay longer for the joy than for the money. They want to be able to be somewhat themselves. And frankly, if you don't have that workplace for them, they'll just make something up. I have someone that just does Twitch now. That's all they do. So like, people will figure out other ways in which to find jobs. This is a different economy. So recognize, what are you bringing fun-wise, play-wise into the workplace? So, all right. So for the argument's sake for you, when you're like, we got to deal with this toxic leadership, we got to deal with toxic masculine leadership, what is the arguments that you're going to give? I'm going to give you these arguments, and then we get to Ted Lasso. Okay, so the cost for turnover because of toxic leadership right now is $223 billion, right? According to SHRM. This is 2019, so this number's much higher by now. So what does that actually mean? That would be the equivalent of 7.43 million employees getting paid $30,000 a year. Okay, like, we are losing significant amounts of money. So let's talk about for your company specifically. Let's say you have a brilliant jerk, this genius, and how much money does he bring in? Because remember that argument, they're like, oh, well, he brings in a lot of money. You know, Chad brings a ton of money. If there's a Chad in here, I'm sorry, but we're gonna use you. Chad brings in $300,000 worth of resources. Great, Chad's the best. Why would we get, what's the issue with Chad? Oh, so every time a toxic person, especially a leader, connects with anybody, their productivity drops dramatically. And this is just one study that was done where $14,000 in lost productivity per staff member. So if you're talking about 20 staffers that toxic person talks to, that's almost $300,000. Oh, the brilliant jerk doesn't look so great anymore. Okay, how much does it cost when someone quits? 6 months of their salary to sometimes twice their salary to recruit. You know, you do this all the time. So how much is that going to actually cost? Okay, maybe Chad isn't as great, but you know, he's still bringing in some money. Oh, lawsuits. Oh yes, toxicity, lawsuits. This is only the numbers for the research to get ready for the lawsuit, not even the lawsuit and the settlement. So what are you doing when you're making an argument for why that toxic person's got to go or we have to address their behavior? Find out the exact numbers this person is costing you. How many people have quit? How many potential lawsuits? What is the level of productivity? Are people not showing up to meetings? What is all that? Make that argument so that there's actual documentation rather than just being like, he's just an a-hole. Because that's just not enough. It just isn't. I wish it was, but it wasn't. So be constantly thinking about, what could you do if you got rid of someone that was costing you $300,000? What could you do with that money? Team building, development, bonuses. Like, this is what we're trying to figure out. How much money is this person costing you so that you can argue, if we were able to channel this money somewhere else, we could do so many different things. That's what I would recommend, okay? Now, the problem that's happening in the media right now is we have so many shows that celebrate toxic masculine leadership. Billions, Dropout, Succession, all of these are just, oh, look how amazing they are. Oh, they're worth billions of dollars, but they're also super toxic, right? Even Breaking Bad, people are like, I love that man. He sells drugs, guys. You know, so like, what are we celebrating? Like, the anti-hero has been so popular that the reason why Ted Lasso became such a phenomenon is because for once, we were able to find a leader that embraced both healthy feminine and healthy masculine leadership. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a play thing in a moment, but I'm going to go really fast so that we can get through it. But we're going to do a play thing in a moment where you need to pick your archetype. I'm going to give you 4 different archetypes based off of people in the show. You might be like, I'm all of them. Yes, you are all of them. And I need you to pick one, okay? So for this session or this interaction, so here we go. Are you ready? All right, let's do this. Okay, so feeling seen and appreciated. We're going through leadership archetypes. The first, Rebecca. So Rebecca, for anyone that doesn't know, Rebecca basically owns the team. She runs the team. And because of it, she is very decisive. She is very on top of like delegating authority. We need to get stuff done and we need to get stuff done now, right? So that's one archetype. She represents the boss archetype, constantly making decisions, always ready to make decisions. Cool? All right, we got that one. Second, we have the coordinator. That is Higgins. For anyone that represents Higgins, Higgins is her second in command. He takes the chaos that Rebecca and Ted tell her, and he coordinates it into something that makes sense, right? He loves that sequencing. He loves to get everything in a row. Like he's dependable, he's personable, he's reliable, but he organizes everything so we can actually get stuff done. So are you the coordinator or are you the boss? Third, Ted Lasso. So Ted, visionary, loves potential, always energized by new ideas, sees the big picture, always horrible at details. Horrible at details, that's me. Horrible at details, but entrepreneurial, right? And then finally, we have Keely. Keely specializes in connection and harmony. She cares more about the relationship than getting things done. What do we need to do in order to get buy-in in order to do stuff? All right? So then quickly, again, boss archetype. Are you a boss archetype? Are you a coordinator like Higgins? Are you an innovator like Ted? Or are you a nurturer like Keely? All right, does everyone have the one that they're picking? Okay, so this is what we're going to do. This is stage front. This is stage front. So what we're going to have is we're going to have all of the nurturers come over here. We're going to have all the coordinators go over here. On the back left is going to be innovators, and then the back right is going to be bosses. And you have 1 minute to find your place. Keep going. Go ahead over to that area. You can stand. You can stand. Find your place. Oh, Higgins.
Can you repeat which ones they are again?
All right, so we have nurturer, that's the top left. Nurturer is about connection, relationships. Coordinator, they're the organizers. And then we have innovators, the back right, and bosses on the back left. Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, what did I just say? Yeah, innovators, back left, back left. Innovators, back left. Bosses, back right. And if we can not block the camera, here, just scoot on in there. Oh, you're deciding. I love it. You're in the middle. I get it. Okay, when you get to your section, what I want you to do is I want you to find one person. And you're going to be like, why are you here? What resonated with you about this archetype? Why specifically did you choose this section? So go ahead, find one partner and ask them, what are you doing? What resonated with you about this specific archetype? And dun, 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 dun. We're moving. Having some conversations, Amy. That's what I'm talking about, Alex. What do we got back here? We got the bosses back here? We got the bosses? Oh, man. I know about y'all. Why'd you choose this area?
Because we like to get shit done.
Dude, I hear you, dude. I hear you. Any other reasons? You got to make decisions. All right. five that partner, high five that partner, be like, yeah, I see you, I recognize you. Okay. Okay, so now, before we have the next thing that next question I'm gonna ask you in a moment, is let's just talk about the sections for just a moment. Okay, so let's give credit for everybody. So give a round of applause for each section. All right, so we have the nurturers. Give it up for the nurturers. They support you. They're the glue that keeps everything together. All right, give it up for the coordinators. The only reason anything is organized is because of them. Nothing gets done without them. Oh, give it up for the innovators. My people, so many ideas, almost too many ideas. Okay. And then give it up for the bosses. Oh. Okay, so there's a reason why you are where you are, right? Because they're opposites. So, for example, let's just try to now build some level of empathy and understanding, right? So, we have the nurturers. The nurturers are about connection. They're about relationships. They're about making sure that people feel seen and heard. So, if I was to go to the bosses, it would be like, yo, we can't make a decision yet. We have to get buy-in. This is what, you have this crazy, amazing idea that needs to get done. You want it done tomorrow. We have to talk to everyone and actually figure out buy-in. So there has to be like a certain level of patience and empathy for the fact that they need to get that buy-in first, all right? But nurturers, you gotta get stuff done. Like, what are you doing? Well, there's a lot of talking. And the bosses are like, how much buy-in does everyone? Sam doesn't even, he's part-time. He said, why do we need to get buy-in from Sam? Sam's gonna quit tomorrow. So we have to understand the fact that they also are being pressured by their own to get things done. So you have to give them timelines so that it works, right? Okay. Then we have the coordinators, right? And we have my people, the innovators. So, there's so many coordinators. I love you. So many of you. Okay, so here's the issue. When we come to you with an idea, it's half-baked. We haven't really thought of it fully, but we just want validation. We just want you to be like, this idea is amazing, you know? So can you just validate our idea just for a little bit? Just represent our energy because we're so excited with our half-baked idea, and we just really need your validation, right? Innovators, they have questions. They're going to have so many questions. So many. How is it going to get done? How much is it going to cost? Like all these things. You have to be ready for the questions. The questions don't mean they don't agree with you. They may not. But the questions, they may not agree with you, but it's more the idea of they need to actualize it. So because they need to actualize it, we can't think questions as just means they say no. And I think we always interpret it that way, right? So what I'm going to attempt to do, and this is going to be messy, and the coordinators are going to be like, this is the worst. This is not organized at all. But what I want you to do is, as best as you can find, either find someone opposite of you or someone that is not in your archetype, and then I want you to answer this question. What are the strengths you don't feel are appreciated from you, right, your archetype, by the opposite one? All right, so I want you to find someone that is opposite from you and then answer this question. Go ahead, find that person. If not opposite, then find somebody that's different for the coordinators. And if you still can't find anyone, then just connect with someone right next to you. That's another thing. I'm opposite of you, yeah. Okay.
Stability is what I bring. Stability.
Oh, yes, I agree. Yes, I agree. Okay, what I feel is mine. What is mine? I feel people don't appreciate all my ideas. I have so many ideas. I have so many ideas. And I'm not able to really, get them validated.
Can I have one or two? Not
Yes,
five?
just not 5. So if there's a traffic jam in the middle, then go to the outside, everyone. Then find someone on the outside. Let's talk. Us 4. Let's go.
As a coordinator, this is a little bit.
I know this is crazy. This is chaotic. They did not give me the room I requested. But yeah. So what are you coordinators?
Yes.
Okay, so what is something that you feel is not appreciated?
A lot of the questions.
A lot of the questions, yeah.
So we have the
Yeah.
knowledge, or we want to know what you want to do, what your plan is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a question is not a no.
A question is not a no.
It's helping you figure out the details.
Yes.
So that I can get you the resources to get your idea to life.
Yes. What about you?
Well, I'm a
You're a nurturer. So what is not appreciated for you?
that I actually care about how you feel.
I know. I know.
I'm here to.
I know.
How can I help?
We
Yeah.
care, we just have questions.
We just have a lot of questions. Yeah, we have a ton of questions. I feel like as an innovator, I feel like my ideas, I have so many ideas, and a lot of times they get knocked down. That's not possible. He's at it again with more ideas.
Here he comes.
He hasn't even finished the last idea.
Exactly.
Let's go the other way.
Oh my God.
See, our questions are how we show that we care.
Yeah.
Because if we had no questions, it would be because we didn't
Right,
care.
right.
How we can help you.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Help
okay.
me help you.
All right, let me get the next question. Okay, everyone. Okay. All right. So you've asked the question. All right. All right. So we've asked the question, what are your strengths you don't feel you're appreciated for, right? So those are ones that you have to be able to communicate with other people when you go back to work. I don't feel appreciated about these. These are the ones that I actually feel how I contribute to the workplace. Now, trying to understand somebody else, I want you to ask the question. Oh, can you just move back for a second there? Thanks, Alex. So, he's filming it. Okay. So what are the strengths you appreciate about a different archetype? So now it's trying to understand, okay, right? This person's different from me. What is it that they get done that I cannot get done? So answer that question with your group. All right.
So I work for an innovator.
Yep.
And that's why I think I'm as much of a coordinator as I am. But I appreciate that he helps me think longer term, longer picture.
Yep.
And that he brings the big ideas and kind of pushes me out of my zone.
Do you communicate that to him?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. What about you?
He knows you're going to get
Same
it done.
thing.
Same thing. I appreciate what they come up with.
Okay.
Their ideas, their thought process. And like I said earlier, it's our job to help them.
Make it a reality. Yeah. Yep. And then what's the?
Well, just I think being more grounded.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I can get kind of, a little too sappy or,
Nothing wrong with
feel-
sappy.
the feeling.
I love sappy.
Sometimes you gotta, stop the feeling.
Yes.
So, yeah, that would be what I appreciate.
Oh, okay.
But I appreciate that you bring that balance of the amazing boss, right? But he is definitely that innovator where he drops these bombs on me and then he walks away and then he comes back a week later and wants to know
Where are
why,
we at?
Yeah, and I'm like, where we were before because you haven't answered the 10
Ah,
questions
yeah.
that I
Yeah.
need, right?
Yeah.
Right? And so you're always kind of in that balancing.
So how do you communicate that to him?
Luckily, I do have a really good boss.
Oh, good. That's
Right?
great.
So I say to him, I need a few minutes of your time
Yeah.
to make sure that I understand
Yeah.
what your vision is.
Yeah.
Right? And then can I ask a couple questions? I have to start it off like that because otherwise he thinks this is going to be a 3-hour meeting.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Oh, no, that totally works.
Yeah, yeah. So, and it doesn't always work. And it gets frustrating at times because I feel like not only, I was telling her, I have to manage up.
Yep. Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And that can be a very slippery slope. You
Yep.
have to know when to speak up and when
Yep.
not to. You know?
Well, it's always great when they come back to me and like, okay, I have some questions. questions. I want to make sure that what I'm understanding is really what you're looking for me to do or to help put together. So that was it. I'm the big picture, more creative.
Yeah.
Thing. I need individuals that can stay focused on task, know start to finish how to make the vision a reality.
Yes,
So,
yes. Oh, good, oh, good, oh, good, oh, good. Oh, sweet. All right. Okay, everyone. All right. High five your group. Thank each other. You've learned some things. And then find your seat. Find your seat. Find your seat. Okay, so while people are finding their seat, what did you learn? What did you learn about yourself or other people?
We get along pretty well.
What?
We get along fine.
Let's go. Okay, what else?
You're more productive if you focus on the strengths.
Right. We are much more productive when we actually focus on strengths. That's a key thing of positive psychology where we double down on their strengths rather than be like, what are their weaknesses, right? And when you can actually, part of the reason why we even do this is exactly what I would suggest you do when you get back in the office. What are the strengths that people don't appreciate about me? Have I communicated those? And then what are the strengths of other people? Right? And how am I celebrating that? Now, the reality is, like, again, we're not in black and white. Like, how many people feel like they represent many different archetypes? Right? So, like, it's complex. But what are we doing to make sure other people feel seen and heard and appreciated so that we also do? Because there's a little certain level of reciprocity that happens on a regular basis. So how are we having that conversation? Anything else that you, like, realized while you were doing this exercise? Yeah.
It's just the beauty of diversity.
Yeah.
If we talk about diversity
Yeah.
in these terms, I think more people will be open to that conversation.
Right, because there's no way this organization can work if we don't have all of this. And I think what's been happening is we're like, this is really important, or this is really important, and then everything else disappears. And that is where we get into a lot of dangerous types of toxic leadership. Yes?
I also think a lot about what you are, even if you're more than one thing. How are people receiving it?
Right,
Because
right.
feel a lot about what the nurturers feel. I'm an innovator, but when I'm sharing an idea, it comes across as the innovator and not as the nurturer, and it's not necessarily what I am, but how they're receiving it.
Ooh, the levels of meta we just went down. Goodness. We got to hang out after, But that's a really good point. How are people actually interpreting you, right? How do you actually come across? These are the conversations that we should be having on a regular basis with each other. What if one meeting, instead of going through the to-do list, y'all just talked about how you even communicate with one another? That might be a more impressive meeting. Or what would be better? What if you just canceled the meetings? Because so many meetings are wasteful. We don't need to have that many meetings, right? So, like, we have to be thinking about how are we having more real conversations, whether they're in a meeting format or one-on-one, where we're trying to build understanding for one another, right? So then as we're getting this into then where does this look like from a healthy masculine, healthy feminine leadership standpoint, this is an exercise I recommend people try doing, right? So whenever I'm working with a team, we'll ask them, what traits does your team currently have, right? Are you focused on profitability, cognitive intelligence, competition, commanding and controlling? Like, what are the ones that your team prioritizes, right? So identify that, then ask yourself, what is missing? Are you missing people that are focused on collaboration? Are you missing celebrating and cultivating more emotional intelligence? Are you thinking about sustainability and not just the next quarter and the next quarter? How are we thinking 10 years down the road? A lot of companies, especially in like Asia, they're 50, some of them are 100 years old. So when they think about process, they think what's going to impact them in the next 10 years. When was the last conversation you had like that at work? Like everything's next quarter. Too short term, what are we doing long term to keep people? Which would actually make your life easier in HR if we were thinking that long. So then after we do this, and we're like, okay, what traits do you have? What traits are you missing? Then I put that up there. And then I'm like, oh, look at these. We have to represent both. Why are we not cultivating both? Profitability is really important, but not if it affects the sustainability of an organization, right? If we just hit our profits for 3 years in a row and then fall down like Twitter, what's the point, right? We have to be thinking about how do we incorporate all of these. And then we also have to understand that this is like we're all on a gender spectrum. We represent, just like we said, the 4 different archetypes. We represent everything. We represent all of these. All of these. So how are we making sure that we're not skewed so much to one end? It doesn't matter. We could also totally be on that end as well. But where are we doing to actually focus on balance? How are you finding new leaders that actually are compassionate, empathetic, and have a certain level of shared humanity? What are you doing on a regular basis to do that? What are you doing in HR? Do you even have that as part of your process when you're looking at candidates? Or are we just checking off boxes right now? Because again, remember, 30% of the workforce is going to be Gen Z. You got to prepare for that. So when we're talking about healthy masculine leadership, I like this definition the best. Healthy masculinity replaces harmful and risky and violent masculine attitudes and behaviors and replaces them with empathy, right? That focuses on emotional and physical well-being, increases their ability to embrace nonviolent, communication, NVC, right? Like, what are we doing to actually cultivate this? Do you know in like places in India, 2 men holding hands, normal. You do that here, totally looked down upon. A lot of men wouldn't be able to handle that. Why? It's not that big of a deal, but a lot of us men have bought into this characteristic that we have to be a certain way rather than actually being like vulnerable and willing to like connect with one another. Now, here's my challenge for a lot of the women that are here or anyone that identifies as a woman. There are more allies than you think. There's more of us that actually don't buy in to the patriarchal model, but you just gotta talk to us about it. And you probably have to like approach it and not just be like, are you down for the patriarchy? You can't, you ready to dismantle it tomorrow? No. But if you're talking to them, be like, what do you think of the leadership right now? How are we actually addressing it? What do you consider quality leadership? What type of leadership do you want to cultivate? Start looking for those allies. We are here, but we a lot of times are not vocal because we also are very scared to speak up. So recognize that sometimes we're feeling in many ways maybe just like you do. So we have to understand then that the traits of healthy masculine leadership, again, represented by anybody, right? It can be cultivated by anybody. The fact that I'm asking for what I need, the fact that I'm calling out other men when they're being aggressive, that's super rude. Why are you, well, that's very belittling. What are we doing, And actually challenging, this is the other thing, calling in, but also calling out men. If you do find allies, then hold us accountable. Be like, yo, when Chad speaks to me in that room and he cuts me off, I need you to have my back. Are you down for doing that? Some men actually will. So that's another way in which we can actually start to change the culture. One meeting at a time, or you can just cancel the meeting. But if you have to have the meeting, then one meeting at a time, how are we actually empowering others to step up? Cool? Sweet. So we're cultivating this for men, but then let's also talk about healthy feminine leadership, right? Which I don't need to go into in so much detail, but the reality is like empathy, collaboration, communication. Emotional intelligence is vital to any company surviving right now. I don't understand why that is not the main focus. Everyone should be focused on how do I cultivate more emotional intelligence so that my leaders can have a certain level of human interaction with me, because right now it's really bad from a lot of the leadership. So what are we doing to cultivate a certain level of emotional intelligence, and how are we celebrating healthy feminine leadership? Who are dope people that exhibit that? Spanx, Sarah Blakely, phenomenal. She gave like $10,000 bonuses when they went public, and she gave like a trip to everyone to go like anywhere in the world. Why is that not being celebrated more? Why are we not focused more on those types of leaders and actually being like, this is how you should lead, right? This is how I feel seen as an employee, because someone is like, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. Like, this is like the vibe that they're actually getting my back, right? So what are we doing to do that? And she probably represents, in my opinion, probably the best level of healthy masculine and healthy feminine leadership. So this is Jacinda Ardern, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand. During COVID, she was, let's talk from a healthy masculine standpoint, right? She set a lot of boundaries. She did not let people come in. She was very clear. She was very decisive, right? But then also healthy feminine, she was very compassionate. She made sure that a lot of the citizens actually had universal basic income, so that if they weren't working right now, they still had like a way in which to feed their family, right? So because she was able to do both those balances, lowest COVID rates in the world, lowest COVID rate death across the entire world. Like, this is what happens when you can find a certain level of balanced leadership. How are we finding more leaders like this? So my challenge to you, because I need to find it as well, where are more healthy feminine leaders like this? Whether they are a woman, a man, or identify as trans, like, how are they being represented and celebrated? That is a challenge to you. Where are you celebrating those leaders, and how are you giving them credit for all of the amazing work that they do? Because typically they don't get recognized. They typically get ignored. So as we're wrapping up here, and then I'm going to take some questions. This, if there's any slide to take a photo of, then take a photo of this slide. This is what questions you specifically asking. Just these questions. And if you're having trouble figuring these questions out, I'm happy to come and help you dissect these, right? But the first, obviously, is what is the worst behavior you're currently tolerating? Stop tolerating that behavior. The flip side of that question is, what is the best behavior you're not recognizing? Who's someone that is not getting celebrated right now? Why are they the epitome of the mission and values of your organization and nobody knows? How do we represent that person more, right? Then, what leadership traits do you want to cultivate? So again, do those ones that were back here earlier. These, right? How do we figure out how to pull out more of certain traits that are currently missing? Now, you might have a lot on this side. Well, then how are we cultivating more of these? What are you doing on a regular basis in your trainings, in your performance evaluations? What are you doing to actually bring this up, to make sure that this is more balanced? And then the last two questions, who exemplifies healthy masculine and feminine leadership right now at your organization? So who is that? And let's identify those people. And then whose buy-in do you need in order to build up a whole new crew of leaders or cultivate the leaders that you already have? Like, where do I need to get the money, or where do I need to get the resources, or where do I need to get the support? Who are your allies in the C-suite level that actually can fund this, that actually buy into this? Because there's going to be a few people that are going to push back on this, because they're going to be like, it's fine the way it is. It's worked fine forever, so it's going to be great for the rest of time. And you're like, you're going to retire in 2 years, so you're not going to screw me over. All right, so like let's talk about the reality of what's actually happening, right? And like, how are we addressing issues, not just like putting out the fires that are happening in the next 6 months, but what are we doing for the next 5 years to do this, and how do we get buy-in? And then finally, what are you going to do? What action are you going to do? If there's nothing else, what's the first thing you're going to do? I'm going to find some allies. What's the first thing you're going to do? I'm going to let people know how I want to be appreciated at work, right? There's small snippets for you, and it's individual for each of you, that represent what is going to change the culture. The culture starts with you. So what are you doing? What are you challenging? What patriarchal issues are you pushing? And where are you finding those dope leaders that we need? Cool? All right, let's hear questions. Oh, yeah, let's hear questions and then I'll wrap up with this. Let's hear questions. What questions you might have? That's real. So if I run a workshop, it's $7,500. If I'm doing a keynote, it's $10,000.
Okay, what's your fee for a small business?
No, I do nonprofits. So I do nonprofit rates and university rates. So if you want, let's talk about that. Yeah, what else? Yes. Who makes my Lego? So I used to play with Lego for a living. So I used to teach kids engineering with Lego, and then I ran team building events for companies with Lego. And while we did it, one day, a friend of mine challenged me to wear the bow tie. It was like, I dare you to wear the bow tie to a conference. And then after I wore it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna wear it all the time. This is so much fun. And now it reminds me not to take things too seriously, and that we're all wearing costumes. Okay, another question. Yes? Yeah, so go ahead and scan this QR code, and it's just my LinkedIn. Either connect or follow me, and then I'll just send them directly to you. Any other questions?
What inspired you to pick Ted Lasso versus other shows? Or were there other runners-up?
So, no, there were no other runners-up. It was the only one. It was the only one because it was the only one where I was like, oh, that's a healthy man. Like, that's how I want to be like a man, right? Like, I want to have vulnerability. I want to be able to connect to Trent Krim and take him out of his shell, right? And then all of a sudden, like, he's like a best friend of me. Like, I want to do that. I want to go to an Indian restaurant and, eat hot food and just be like, this thing is amazing. Like, I want to connect, right? And there was no examples of like a relationship like Beard and Ted, for example, where they had each other's back, where they listened to each other, right? Usually at least the relationships I've had with men, most of the time we're like talking about sports or talking about something else because it's really hard for us to just be like, I'm really sad right now, right? But instead I can be like, my team is losing. This is the reason I'm sad. But you're like, is that really you? And think about it, sometimes the only time men embrace men is when we win a championship. Like, what if your team never wins a championship? You never get to have a healthy, celebration and connection with each other. So it's just like, this actually represented that, where it's just like, finally healthy masculinity and healthy femininity in a man. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, sweet. So the last thing I'll say is this. So, first off, how many of you know how important you are to the organization? How many of you believe you know how important you are? So it's funny, even how people raise their hand, they're like, well, maybe, I don't really know. Kind of. So I don't think we realized how much we bailed out all of these companies during the pandemic. A lot of times we were the ones that had to figure it out. We had to figure out what the protocols were. We were making up half the stuff as we went along. One of my HR friends had to call the professor of epidemiology at Dartmouth and was like, what should I do? And they're like, I don't know, we'll figure it out together. So I don't think we realize at this point the power that we have at this crucial moment, right? Because we are coming out of the pandemic and we're really deciding, are we gonna go back to the Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, toxic type of culture, right? That celebrates individualism, ego, and a lot of toxic masculinity? Or are we finally willing to embrace shared humanity in the workplace? Are we finally willing to embrace compassion and empathy? This is where you come in. This is where you get to decide the leaders that are coming into your organization, and you get to decide how to cultivate them, how to empower certain ones while making sure that other ones don't take over, right? And this is the crossroads that we're having, and every decision that you make, you're deciding right now where we're going. And I don't think a lot of times we realize how much they need us. I think we're constantly thinking about, marketing, sales. we're the most revenue generating department out of the entire organization. Why? Because we keep people, because we find amazing people. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be existing. So I think we have to own our badassery a little bit more and just start speaking up for yourself and start watching out for each other's back, because when we do that, all of a sudden we create a situation in a company where work doesn't suck anymore, right? And we finally are getting our staff to do their most vibrant work. All right? Thank you so much for everybody. I appreciate you. If you got questions, ask me after.